Welcome to the Thrive Table, an aspect of the Why to Thrive podcast where we talk about the mind, purpose, and leadership. We often have guests who come in and enrich us with their perspectives, but today we can call it an in-house Thrive Table conversation because I'm joined by Joshua, who is our head of tech and design at Poyman. Joshua, you're
Hi,
most
Michael.
welcome to the Thrive
Thank you for
Table
having me.
conversation. Good to have you. So, like I said, we focus on mind, purpose, leadership. Today we are talking about purpose, and I want to talk about an idea that emerged from purpose. And it talks about how that idea was triggered by imagination, how that imagination awakened perspective, and how that perspective provided direction, and how that direction became a book. That's what we
Yeah.
are going to talk about today. And it's a book about questionings, discoveries, confrontations, and convictions. So get ready to be, enlightened about what Joshua has been working on in quiet. Today we are unveiling the project. We are unveiling what he's been doing. And I trust that it's going to be a very, very fruitful conversation together. So one thing about me is I love backstories.
Yeah.
I don't like to just jump into things. So I want you to give us a backstory about who you are so that it gives context to what we're about to look at today. So, Joshua, give us a backstory about yourself.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much for having me once again. It's amazing being on this side of the equation when I'm always on the opposite side.
Yeah.
But I think to dive straight into your question, I think I grew up believing I didn't have talent. Right?
Really?
It sounds strange and weird when I say it now, but I grew up firmly believe it's not that I thought I didn't. I believed
Family.
firmly believing I didn't have any
Why
talent of
was
my
that?
own. So growing up, when you're asked about talent, we have singing, dancing, playing sports. But I realized that all of these things weren't my greatest forte.
Okay.
Even in acts, I couldn't act. I remember there was this specific Jesus play that we were playing, and I was asked to be a sheep in a play. And I was sacked from the play because I couldn't even
You
act
just
the
couldn't.
role of a sheep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had grown up firmly believe I didn't have talent, and then at that point too, I struggled with the stammer too.
Okay.
So believing I didn't have talent and not being able to do anything, and also stammering too on top of it, it meant
just
that
almost shuts you off.
it shuts me off in so many ways. But I think one of the things I discovered quite later on was that I had so many ideas, right? So I will always have ideas, things I'm thinking about in my mind. And then until I express those ideas and thoughts, they keep on haunting me. They never leave, right? And so since I couldn't speak, writing became the outlet for the
For
ideas
you,
I had.
that you had.
Right. So I began journaling quite early, I think around class 6 DHS1.
Okay.
That's when I began actively journaling and writing down my thoughts. But initially they were just a way of me bringing out the burdens I had inside.
haunting thoughts.
Yeah, the haunting thoughts.
Okay.
And somewhere along the line, I began sharing those thoughts on my WhatsApp status.
Okay.
So you see, people who type long statuses,
yeah.
that is exactly me. So
Okay.
I began sharing some of those journals on my
Yeah.
status, and people found them quite interesting. And so from that point, I migrated to a blog
Okay.
on my website. I just built a simple Notion site to host my ideas and all.
Okay.
That's the ones I was comfortable publishing. Because since they were my thoughts, some of them felt personal. So
It's not to you.
I just published the ones I felt
Okay.
were open to share. And then I moved on to a newsletter. But then somewhere along the line, I also realized that like I needed a place to consolidate all my thoughts and my
Yes.
ideas together. And that's how come we have the book today.
Okay. Very interesting. Right. I remember early stages when I started getting to know you. I would meet you and you are like a closed book. You don't say anything. You are very quiet. But then I will chance on your status and then I see rumblings or thoughts or ideas
Yeah.
shared. And I remember having a conversation with you because I couldn't reconcile the two personalities. And you made a description that has stayed with me. I am virtually social, but
Person, yeah.
physically I'm
Antisocial.
antisocial.
Yeah.
I mean, I think only a person of your caliber can come up with
Yeah.
that kind of description. So it started off not knowing what you had, realizing what you have, being burdened, and then starting to share
Yeah.
your thoughts. And what a journey it's been
It
to
has
this
been.
point. And that leads to my next question. Take me to the moment where something really shifted that triggered this resolve to start writing about the continent, because there's a lot of talk about Africa, the promise we have, our past, sometimes our hopeless future,
Yeah.
and making a decision to be in that space. Like, what was it like for you? What shifted? What triggered it?
I think the major shift happened during the COVID, during the COVID period. At that point, I was in the Central Leadership Program, and
Okay.
as part of that, we needed to complete some assignments and stuff
Okay.
on Africa, on Christianity,
Okay.
on leading change, and all of those things. So it was COVID, and I had a lot of time to reflect. COVID
Yeah.
was one of the best moments in my life because I had so much
What
peace, so
time?
much time to think and and reflect. And around that time, so I was reading, because I had time, I was reading some articles on war strategy out of curiosity,
Okay.
right? And I've forgotten the exact place I read it, but then the idea was about reinforcing your strengths
Okay.
rather than focusing on
On
your
your
weakness.
weaknesses.
Because there's no point focusing on your weaknesses when your strengths in itself haven't been focused on.
Fully explored.
Yeah, I think through that, because of the CLP, we're reading Go Bold Vessels.
Okay.
It's a book by a pastor, Mr. Tabo. And so reading that book and reading the articles on war strategy, I found, what really do I have? And so I began the process of really thinking through. At that point, I didn't really know writing was something I could
Something that
consider
you could consider as a
a,
tool.
a gift. So by reading Go Bold, because I realized that the people really read my statuses, and then I get engagement from there. I began sharing my thoughts on Africa from what I was learning from the CLP program. And while I was sharing, I felt that no, like there's so much about the continent that is unknown,
Yeah.
right? If you look at the continent history, which I go into the book, our continent history spans like over 4,000 years. But then our history that we learned in school began from when we were colonized.
Yeah.
And then if this is Africa's history, this is the
Yeah.
part
It's
we
a
learned
drop.
about. It's a drop in a mighty ocean. So
Yes. Yes.
once I realized that frustration, I began sharing content around the continent. But then the idea for this book came really one time when I was doing my national service. So I was going to buy kinky. I remember it clear. I was going to buy kinky during lunch. I was working with a friend. And then another guy approached us and we were having a random conversation. I think he was an expert. He's I'm thinking German or Italian, but it doesn't really matter. But I know he was an expert. So he was working with us and talking about random stuff. And as the conversation neared its end, he was like, "Wow, you have so much potential. Why are you in Ghana?"
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how it came off. Why are you in Ghana? Because I think if you go to the
To
US
you
or
or to both of you?
I think it was to me because I was
Okay.
engaging him. I think my
Okay.
other friend was on a call, so I was
Okay. You
engaging
were the
him.
one doing the
Yeah.
engagement. Okay.
And so it was like I could do a lot more with my life in the US or in Europe. So he's encouraging that if I can, I should attempt to travel.
To move out.
To him, it sounded like a compliment, but then to me, it was
A trigger.
the trigger and then the tipping point. Because up until that point, you have everyone around me telling that, oh, I think we should travel. But having been to the US once for a week, I felt this place isn't for me.
Same for you.
Yeah, so if I hadn't been there, then probably my focus would be there. But having been there, I felt like
Yeah.
I don't think this place is for me.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't out of a passion for Africa in the beginning, I just felt I don't think I want to be there. So although I attempted going to study, I didn't feel
That it was the right
the need
decision
to
for you
to push
I
through.
mean, it's interesting with your story, because just a few days ago, Ghanaian artist was in the UK,
Yeah.
and he was asked why he doesn't do shows internationally and try to market himself to the world. And he made a rather striking statement, similar to Watchmen, that, I can find value right where I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
So I don't need to be out there to be respected. I can
Yeah.
gain respect and then be recognized from wherever people are in the world. And I think that
Exactly.
that's a step in the right direction. So did the decision to proceed with staying in Africa, growing yourself in Africa, like how has it been so far from that point to now, and now producing this resource that we'll soon be delving into?
Being honest, it hasn't been an easy choice. It was a difficult one because going to the other reason why I had attempted traveling outside to study was because I was looking for scholarships and ways to fund my education.
Yeah.
I think our family situation at that point wasn't really the best, right? So if I wanted to be educated, then my best chance would have been through a scholarship. But then locally, you hardly have scholarships for people,
Yeah.
right? Even if they're scholarships, they are really for
Specific.
specific fields of very, very intelligent people.
Yeah.
And I think I'm an average Joe. So so the thought of staying in Ghana to get educated would mean that I would have to find ways to cover out the fees I had to pay.
Yeah.
But thankfully, God being so good, in level 100, I had a scholarship.
Okay.
Yeah, and that scholarship meant that my worry of funding my education was
taken
no
off
more.
you.
And so as that had been handled, then it meant that now I could really focus on making the most of my time in Ghana.
Yeah.
Because I felt if they say I have potential, then I want to see the potential I have.
Yeah.
Right. And Ghanaian lecturers and how they can be very difficult. They have a moment where I'm like, this one, if I had traveled outside, all of this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Maybe my graduation, I had issues with my graduation too from UG. Several issues that I had no hands in. But because of someone's mistakes, I couldn't graduate, and it was now my fault.
Yeah.
There have been moments like that where I felt I may have made a bad
Yeah.
decision. But looking at the whole process and the kind of growth I've seen, even in Ghana, I think I am really content that I just stay to make the most of
Make
what the
the most of
country
the
has to
opportunity.
offer.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, you have developed a concept, which is what the book is centered on,
Yeah.
and you took two distinct words. Each of them have their own meanings and their own value. You brought it together and created a whole new meaning outside of it, and that's what we are going to delve into on pragmatic optimism. It sounds like a mouthful, but we'll all get used to it. So if you are watching us, you can join us by saying pragmatic optimism. That's the term. So how did you stumble on it? Was it something you set out to create, or is just something that came as a result of your thought processes? So just give us an idea of pragmatic optimism.
So initially, when I decided that okay, I'll compile all my journals and thoughts about the continent into a book, my initial thinking was naive optimism.
Naive
Naive
optimism.
optimism. Naive optimism is, simply put, it's like the kind of faith and belief a child has when they are learning to walk.
Okay.
Whereas that if you observe children learning to walk, they will stumble and fall several
Yeah.
times, but that they falling doesn't impact their walking journey. They still rise up and walk regardless. And I felt that was my story about staying in Africa. So I wanted to share my story and why I'm deciding to stay in Africa. And I felt naive optimism perfectly captured that reason. And I think it still does, because I made a decision not knowing where it will lead me or not having any big ambitions. I don't think a child knows they can walk.
Yeah.
They just start walking
They just
and
start trying and
eventually.
walking,
And so that I believe then that was what I wanted the book to be about. But the more I compare my journals and the more I wrote and reflected, I realized that naive optimism doesn't really capture the essence of what I want to say.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm being optimistic about the continent, but the continent has so much offer that optimism cannot be just naive.
Yeah.
there is a reason for that optimism. It
yeah,
began naive, yes,
yeah.
but at this point, there's a
Can't
bigger
stay
reason
naive.
than optimism.
Yeah,
So I then found that I was being optimist in a pragmatic way,
yeah,
like being deliberate about how the optimism or the optimism I was using.
okay.
So that's how I combine a very pragmatic and optimism. But it sounds big, but it isn't
It's not
in any
a big
way.
concept
There's not a big concept.
when you
So
look at it
when you practice,
practical.
yeah,
You know, it's funny because what you've just described is exactly what happened with the Wire to
we have to
Thrive.
try it exactly.
It was
Yeah.
supposed to be Wired to Inspire,
Yeah.
and then in designing it became
Try
Wired
to
to
thrive. Yeah.
Thrive. And I think you went through that same
Processes.
circle
Yeah.
in your mind where
Yes.
from naive to pragmatic
Yeah.
optimism. And I mean, in the opening pages of the book, you talk about Africans who have more or less proven the
Yeah.
concept, which we'll delve into. You talk about the likes of Patrick Awuah, and then you talk about M-Pesa and
Yeah.
all the things that are happening on the continents that proves that if we are
Yes.
deliberate, if we are intentional, we can actually start solving problems right where we are.
Yeah.
But there's always the other side to it. Are we being too optimistic, even if we are being pragmatic, or are we just doing wishful thinking? What do you have to say to that?
So I think to answer that, I need to give a bit of context into what those words mean.
Me, yes.
So it's you see how we have people who are pessimistic about the continent, that Africa is filled, nothing good can
Yes,
come out
yes,
of
yes,
Africa.
yes.
You have people who are optimistic that Africa is rising, Africa is the perfect continent to have. I believe so. The pessimist will see the glass of water as half empty,
Yeah.
optimist as half full. I believe that isn't the question we should be asking, does Africa has potential or not? But really, what can we do with the water we have in Africa? Because doesn't matter if
Yeah.
Africa is rising or Africa is
It's
failing.
failing.
The
What can
question is,
we
what can
do?
we do with the Africa we have? So that's the
The critical
question
question that
pragmatic
okay.
optimism seeks to answer. Right? We're trying to understand. This is the continent we have. We are over 1 billion people on this continent. We can't all travel outside of the continent. It's not feasible.
Yeah.
Even if we do, as current trends indicate, we'll be sacked back. So the continent is all we have, right? So what can we do with the
We have to go
continent?
home at any time.
Yeah, we have to do. It's something we have to do. So that's the thinking behind it. And it doesn't mean we are saying everything on the continent is perfect. No, but when we're asking what can we do with this water, it doesn't mean the water is all we need. But it's okay. This is the water we have. What can we do with it based on where we think we want to go?
Yeah.
So if we think we want to go, probably say you are building a house. Say, okay, I want to build a 4-bedroom house. You start with, what do I have?
Yeah.
Probably you have land, you have a contractor friend, you have masons and all. So you gather all this and say, okay, this is what I have, so I can start with this now,
With my
with my
foundation.
foundation.
Yeah.
But you find out, okay, I don't have an architect. So now once you know what you have, you now have a picture of what you don't have,
And what you
just
can
so
do.
it will help you in planning properly. Because if you say you want to build a house and you start copying ideas from everywhere, taking people's notions and thoughts without even knowing what you have in the first
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
it kind of dampens the whole point. And by the time you are done with the building, you have something that looks really awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what pragmatic optimism really like is seeking to do, trying to understand what we can do
With
with
what
what
we
we have.
have. That's it in
Basically,
a pragmatic sense.
exactly. What can we do with what we have?
Incrementally.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting. I remember the first time you sent me the manuscript
Yeah.
to read the book. I wrote down 3 questions that I think the
Okay.
book is asking and answering. So the first question I wrote was, what happened to us?
Yeah.
Because you talk a lot about our past and you stretch it way beyond the usual, what do you call it? Um, what's the word? The popular
Colonization.
colonization. Yes, you stretch it way beyond that, right to the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So the question is, if we had a past that spans that long, what happened to us? Where did we miss it?
Exactly.
And then the second question was, what does the future look like? Which you've
Yeah.
just described, because we need to know what we have and how we
Yeah.
can build with it. But it takes a vision of the future to inform the decisions we are making today, because
Exactly.
you can tell what a person believes by what they do
Yeah.
about the future that they have, you know. And
Exactly.
that was the second question I was asking myself. And then the third question is the response. And I think that's where pragmatic optimism comes in, to provide balance.
Yeah.
It's not selling a happy present. It's not promising the best future, but it's promising us that if we take what we have, the mistakes, the good,
Yeah.
the not so good, and we make the most of it, we give ourselves a chance in the future. And those were just my thoughts, just reading through the book. And now we are going to give our audience the opportunity to really know what the book is really about. But before we do that, when Joshua started this project, he swore to himself and he was going to do it in 1 year. He was 24 at the time. He wanted it to be a 25th birthday
Milestone.
present to himself. And then he ended up doing it in 3 years. What happened?
So, like I explained earlier, this book is a compilation of the journals I had. So I felt I'm just compiling journals, and once I compile it, I'll have a book that can go. And by then, it was in the days of when it was naive optimism. So I felt I only needed to compile it.
And then just release it.
Yeah, but once I began compiling it and then going to my various journals and trying to understand what goes in, what doesn't go in, I realized that no, the weight of what I'm working on deserves its own moments.
Yeah.
I can't just say because I want to launch something at 25.
I must
Then I
launch it at all
must
costs.
I must at all costs launch at 25. Because I realized that the issues I had to tackle and deal with needed a bit more reflection, a bit more research, a bit more thinking. Right. And so I felt it would be very irresponsible of me, especially
Push it out.
to just push it out there because I have to meet a 25th milestone. One of the things I began doing at 21 was sharing some of the lessons I had learned along the way. So I did it on and then because I don't like parties, I felt my birthday should be a celebration of intellect. Because I realized that okay, I had good ideas at 21. So from that point, I felt my birthday should rather be celebrated intellect rather than just having parties.
Yeah, party.
So for every year, I had tried to do something that involved a bit of intellect, bringing people together to have conversations. So I felt 25 should be the big one where I come up with a book on my journey and processes.
Yeah. So you had it all planned out.
I had it
at
all
24.
planned out at 24.
Okay.
But by my birthday is in May. By December, I said no. This thing is not possible. It's not possible. I need more time to firm up the ideas, and once I have something comfortable to publish, I will. And before I realize, 3 years have
3
come.
years have come. And here we are.
Yeah,
But how was the journey like? I mean, tell us about the journey. Did you feel like quitting at a point?
Oh yeah, I quit several times.
What were some of the obstacles you were facing?
I think the major obstacles were the biggest one was myself. If I'm being frank, I kept on asking myself, do I really want my Facebook to be about Africa? If I'm about Africa, then it means that I'm positioning myself as some policy expert when I'm just a young person sharing his thoughts. Yeah. So those doubts of no one will even read it. Why would they will even waste time writing something that no one will read? And also, why Africa? And then at that point when I began, it was weird calling yourself a proud African, because at that point the way the things were going, there seemed to be no hope.
Yeah.
So saying you are writing about Africa sounded really strange, and it's not like now that at least there's a bit of acceptance. So people used to call me Mr. Africa, because I was, and it wasn't in an encouraging way, in a mocking way, and because I used to post a lot of my studies about Africa, and so I gained the name Mr. Africa. So I was just that name. I initially I was feeling bad about it. Right, that's you to call me Africa. If Africa hasn't progressed,
they'll blame you for it.
Yeah, and then they'll really drag me. Or if something bad happens to me. And so I remember when I didn't graduate from school, from the University of Ghana, when I had to take an extra year, people were saying, "You see, you believe in Africa, or you see what Africa is doing to you.
See what Africa has done to you."
Yeah. So there were several of those moments, but I think the drive was just there. Some there were times that I would just drop the book and not touch it for like 2 months,
And
and
just
then
allow yourself to
just allow
breathe.
myself to I'm not doing it again. Someone will say something that will say, no, I need to
And
finish
you
this
go
book and
back
go back
and then
to it
start writing,
and
or you
start
have an
writing it.
experience and then
Yes,
you go
yes,
back to
yes,
write it.
yes.
Okay. I think taking the pressure off the 25th year mark just gave you
Give me
space.
time, exactly.
And I think that's a lesson we can all pick. We are
Yeah,
all driven to do things, but sometimes the journey can come up with so many surprises or
yeah,
twists. We must be able to enjoy those twists as well. Pause when we need to pause, resume when you need to resume. And when it's done, it's done. And I'm
yeah.
happy that 3 years have come and
Exactly.
it's done. And here we are talking about the book. Now, the book itself opens with a very interesting chapter. It was, I won't say difficult reading it, but it was like a whole study on our journey as a people, and you stretched it all the way to the very beginnings with
Yeah,
research. That's what I found very interesting. Research, writings, references, all there to help us appreciate our journey. And I wrote a little thought here. It said, I said it reads like a man having an emotional reckoning of his own ignorance. You know, it's like being in a
yeah.
continent and not knowing
Anything
anything
about
about yourself, and then having someone take you through that journey. What was it like writing that very interesting chapter that starts off the real message of the book?
it was quite difficult to be honest writing that specific chapter. I even battled, like I was asking you several times if I should take it out or I should
Should it be there?
should it be there,
Yeah, yeah.
should it not be there? Because going through that process, I realized that there was so much I didn't know about the continent, about some of the empires he had. While I read, I realized that wow, we have really been great people before. And the past 400 years is just the biggest dent in
Yeah,
our
yeah,
history.
yeah, yeah.
But somehow we've made those 400 years our identity. Like
Yeah,
we've,
it's like it's all we
it's
are.
all we are. It's like there is and then there's very little reference to who we are as a people, the kind of things we've done. And I'm being honest, I had to dig a lot to find this history because they're either in really, really difficult to read books in papers and all that. The ordinary Joe
Yeah,
wouldn't
we didn't have the
necessarily go
time to
into.
want to go through.
The turning point for me was I remember so growing up, my dad used to bring my sister and I books from the library in Takrady. I don't know if the library is still active. But he used to bring us books to just read. And usually the library had a 1 week or 2 week borrow period.
Okay.
By the first or second day, I'm done with the books he's brought.
And then he returns them.
Yeah, and he returns them. But there was a specific book that broke down American history. And I realized that when I was reading the African history book, that I identify more as an American than an African. Because I could articulate the
The history.
the history of America. I felt American from reading that book.
Born in Africa,
Yes,
raised in
born.
Africa,
Yes, in
but
fact,
American at heart.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That's a very
I could,
scary.
yeah, I could relate to it. I could relate to the concept of we the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something I could relate to a bit more. So now reading about the continent felt like undoing what I had ingrained
About
internally.
yourself as an
Yes,
African.
America's story felt compelling to me because again, most of how it had been presented in the book. The book
Yeah.
was a really beautiful book. Lots of imageries. It even spoke about how bananas move from Colombia, are shipped to America and arrive in a day or two. That made me see that okay, America is a really great country, and
Yeah.
it's a country that if I get,
I want to be
I want to
there.
go there. But when I finally got to America, I was like, "Is this it?
This is all there is.
Yeah." And that was the reckoning I had, and that's what made the history parts
Very
difficult.
important and dear to you.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
once I understood where we're from, now the challenge was communicating what I had found in the book in a way that makes it easily understandable
Yeah.
without needing to take it out. Because of where I had found the information from, they were a bit complex. right? I even struggle myself to understand them properly. So I know how to read through it several times.
And then
So this chapter
organize it.
alone, the final version I'm submitting, I still feel it's a bit difficult, but I'm just leaving myself
Given, yeah.
to let
I
it
think
go.
we all need to know the meat of our
Yeah,
history.
we need to.
We know the scanty, but this is meat. This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
real, and
yeah.
it's the longest chapter, I
Yes,
suppose, yeah,
it
in the
is. It
book
is. The version I'm publishing will be probably version 26 or something
of this
of this
particular
particular chapter.
chapter.
I took this chapter out of the book specifically to
To
deal with
really
it.
work on
Yeah, and
it.
I've had several versions. When I'm not comfortable with, I just make a copy and rework it. So I think I have one I'm comfortable with
With
people reading.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage future readers, because you're here to read it. Don't skip this chapter. It's
Yeah.
so important because it's going to help you build a foundation of everything that the book is saying, and put yourself in it. See yourself as an African. Don't see yourself as a spectator that is just observing and watching as though there's nothing going on, or what is going on doesn't have anything to do with you. Just focus on the story as an African and see how it really shifts things in your mind, like Joshua is specifically trying to do. And one other thing that really stood out to me in reading the book was that you made a very striking decision to fight against your own concept. You are talking about pragmatic optimism,
Yeah.
where you are talking about how we can make the most of what we have, but then you stand on the other side and argue against the Africa that everybody is talking about, that holds so much promise, but often underperforms or underachieves. So how did that concept come in? And you didn't try to rebut anything. You
Yeah.
just allowed the argument to run its full course. Why that? And how did you intend to achieve pragmatic optimism through that process?
So being frank, that chapter was one of the very first ones I wrote because again, like I compiled my journals and then my journals onto the point where I began to appreciate Africa was on Africa is trash. Like there's no hope for Africa. So that was at the easiest because there were things that I had been ranting and fainting
Yeah.
about
As a young
as a
person.
young person and then since the beginning of time. So I just felt I needed to add it to provide context that look, I'm not speaking as one who doesn't know the problems we have. Because honestly, the problems we have are real.
Yeah, you can't deny that.
We are in deep deep problems. The issues against us. They are not issues we should be taken lightly. Right? If you are being frank and genuine, there's a huge uphill task ahead of us in order to bring prosperity to our people, to ourselves and our people. But then I felt it needed its own place. It needed to be there, right? To provide context. Because I can't tell you to have hope for the continent, but I'm not giving you the full and broader picture.
Of what you are
Yes.
actually up against.
Yeah, so I want the people who read it and who want to follow on this journey as well to understand the fight we are up against. That it's not an easy battle
Yeah.
fighting the forces we need to overcome are so much. But if you know, if you know you have to climb Mount Everest tomorrow, you prepare for climbing Mount Everest as compared to if you have to climb some of the rocks in Kaswa.
Yeah.
Right, your preparation levels is
It's
different.
different from someone
Yes.
going higher.
So knowing that we are climbing higher than Everest, we need to be psyched and properly prepared. So that if we meet blisters at the 100-meter mark of the Everest, we'll not get like
Yeah.
this. So they will not this part of the whole
Yeah.
process and all. So that's why I added that chapter
That's what,
specifically to
and I think
that
it gives
context.
credence to the title of the book.
Yeah,
It says pragmatic.
optimism.
It wasn't hopeful optimism
Or naive.
or naive optimism or
Yeah.
get rich quick optimism. It's
Exactly.
pragmatic, it's sensible,
Yeah,
and it's arguing out all the things that are wrong,
yeah,
letting people see those things, but then asking themselves, what can we do with all this situation? That's a very interesting thing. And then you made a very compelling thought in the inside the box argument. We have been taught to think outside the box. You hear it; it's like a cliche now. Think outside the box. Think outside the box. But you came and I wrote down a thought. He said, Africa has been trained to look outside the box for solutions that we've stopped looking inside it. We are always looking externally. When we have a challenge, we look at what the Americans are doing. When we have a challenge, look at what the Europeans are doing. We go to the Asians, but
Yeah.
have we looked within our context
Yeah.
to really see if there's a solution? In our first Poimen Mastery Connect, I opened with one of such
Yeah.
looking
Issue-
inside the box. So I was
issue
talking
with
about tomatoes.
Yeah.
And we are always saying our tomatoes goes bad.
Yeah.
And it took someone coming in and just
Improving.
taking something we've always known
Yeah.
that our forefathers, our mothers used to do, how they used to preserve waters and
Waters, I know.
water in pots.
Yeah.
And that was the very thing that was making the tomato last for 3 weeks instead of the 4 days that it was going bad. And so that's exactly something that you make. So if you can just shed light on the looking inside the box concept.
I think that idea came one day when I was at home and then it was doom so there was no light.
Okay.
And then it was one of those hot evenings, so
You couldn't sleep.
I couldn't sleep. I was feeling so much heat. And then when I thought about it, I was like, wait, is that how our forefathers used to feel heat? Because if they used to feel it, then how did they stay? Why didn't they go somewhere? So I began reading around heat in buildings, and I found that honestly, for our context, clay and the propensity it has, not like clay hats and all, but clay itself is able to keep able to manage and monitor like ventilation and all.
Yeah.
I was like, why do we build with so much concrete when there is clay easily available?
Using the technology doesn't really serve us.
That doesn't really serve us. Also, that is where the reflections came. And then like while reflecting, I realized that look, there are so many areas that if we decide to just think with inside the box and then understand what we have, we may not be making some of the mistakes.
Yes, or
Some of the mistakes and decisions we are making. And then I like to illustrate this example, right? So there was this that I was going for an interview from Kaswa to somewhere in Accra. And I didn't know the exact place. I needed to know where it is, to know what kind of cars to pick.
Okay.
And I don't have a car, so it meant I had to use Trotsky. Yes, and so I opened the Google Maps to see where the place is and try and know, okay, what bus stops this place will. But while doing I realized that, wait, this is Google Maps. It's supposed to give me directions, right? If American opens Google Maps, using the exact directions they want, the kind of trains.
Yeah,
and
they're supposed to pick.
That's what came up when I saw the train icon in the map, right? That the map has train icons. So if an American is in Google Map, it works for you perfectly.
Yeah.
But because in our context, we don't use trains, we use the Trotro. It means that the map may not really be able to help you if you need to
in real time.
If you
make
need
certain decisions.
It's really helpful for you if you have a car.
Yeah.
If you don't have a car
or walking.
Yes.
Or cycling.
But coming from Casa to Accra, I can't walk and I can't cycle. So it meant that the map was basically useless for me. I had to just use it for finding out what bus stops are there. And even with that, you don't know the cars that pass there.
Yeah, which specific bus stops.
And then this isn't a difficult problem to solve, if you're being honest. If we know we all bought Trotsky and GPLT or something has the routes in mind, we can just have a database
and build it
into the map. But
that's true.
But the people in Silicon Valley will never know this Trotsky problem.
They are not on the ground.
They're not on the ground, so they can't solve that problem for us. We're the ones facing that problem. And we need to think inside our box to understand that this Trotsky problem is something.
Because just last week, I was inviting someone over to meet with me, and the person said, what car should I pick?
Yes.
And the person was asking, so where exactly should I alight?
Exactly.
And I said, you just open the map and then you track. And then I had to mention a landmark.
Yeah.
But what you are saying is true. If we build it to meet our needs, then we can use it.
And then the benefit of that is the problems, as I read about the content, I realized that the problems we face are more similar than we think. If the solution works in Ghana, it will work in Kenya.
Yeah.
It will work in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone. It will work in so many countries, right? So really we need to start thinking outside the box and seeing what kind of problems we have for ourselves and how we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
fix
Yeah.
those problems
Okay.
for ourselves.
Very, 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 very interesting. And then chapter 11 introduces faith. Because
Okay.
everything we've said so far is about you, your
Yeah.
writing, your journey, how you leaned into the gifts that you have. But here, faith is introduced. It's like a whole belief system on its own. How has your journey as a Christian? Your father is also a pastor,
Yeah, yes.
and your faith and your contemplative side. How have they worked together to bring you to this point?
Well, it has been quite interesting if I'm being honest, right? It's because my father is a pastor, I have grown up with a first hand view and experience of the Christian faith
Okay.
and how the faith is interpreted from the inside,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think I tell my dad this now, but I really admire how even though like things became difficult, the moment where we knew he could have taken the easy path, he decided to he still held on and then kept to what he believed
Believed
was
in.
was the true and genuine word of God and not manipulating people. And I felt honestly that our faith as a people in some way is makes us not reflective and think so much,
Yeah.
right? And one of the things I mentioned in the book is the concept of breakthroughs. I believe there are breakthroughs and all, but if if not handled well, it may cause people to believe in what they shouldn't be believing or
Yeah.
what the Bible hasn't said,
Hasn't said. Yeah.
right? Because if I mean, you live in a country where there is 30% unemployment rate, and instead of really thinking through how you can create jobs for employment or how to reduce that unemployment rate, or in fact pushing government to build proper initiatives, we
Yeah.
are all in church waiting for individual breakthroughs.
Yeah.
That the problems we are facing, for me,
Yeah.
it won't happen to
It
me.
won't happen to
And
me.
so I felt I needed to question that
That thought pattern.
as for
Yeah.
me, it won't happen to me. That look, we are all in this together, right? You can say as for you, it won't happen to you, but we all live in this system. And so we need to be sure that we are not waiting for individual breakthrough.
Yeah.
Even if you are praying for breakthrough, we should be praying for national breakthrough.
Yes.
Because if you are very rich, very wealthy, God gives you breakthrough, but you don't have good hospitals, you don't have good roads, you that personal breakthrough is meaningless, right? It's
Yeah.
really meaningless if personal breakthrough is not linked,
Doesn't
doesn't
the
feed
larger.
into the larger scope. It's
Yeah.
better if we all have money. In that
Yeah.
case, like
Yeah. Yeah.
no one really struggles,
Yeah.
right? And so our faith and the concept of breakthroughs may be preventing us from being reflective
Yeah.
and asking deep questions and questioning people in authority, right? So I felt I needed to bring
To
in
address
that
that.
dimension, even though it
Yeah.
was difficult to
Yeah.
address that. Look, our faith, even though we need to have faith, we still need to
Yeah.
address the issues
Yeah.
our faith is causing
Yeah.
in national
I think we
building.
don't stretch it on a
Yeah,
societal level. It's
exactly.
about what I can get
Yes.
and how I can live.
Yeah.
But we forget about the impact that
Yeah.
it must have on society
Yeah.
as a whole.
Yeah, and I don't think that the Bible is built around personal breakthrough, because you like if reading the Bible, I don't see a part where there's personal breakthrough unless that personal breakthrough is linked
It's
to the
always tied to
breakthrough
something,
of
yeah,
society as a
larger.
whole.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
I'm praying that God should give you a job, a promotion, and it's just that tied to us for me and my family, then we are
It misses the,
twisting
yeah,
the faith into
yeah,
issues
yeah,
where it shouldn't really be. So that's where that chapter comes
yeah.
in.
I mean, you look at the story of Joseph,
Yeah,
prime minister, he's sorted, but in the end, he was like, God sent me ahead to
exactly.
preserve families,
Yeah,
and eventually he had to preserve Egypt and preserve the world as a whole because people were
exactly.
coming to buy supplies from Egypt to live just because of
Exactly.
his
Yeah.
wisdom and his
Yeah. And
initiative.
then there's another thing I raise in the book too that, so for example, if you are having faith that God will give you breakthrough, but your business isn't doing well, you're having faith for that breakthrough, it will stop you from reflecting if the product you are selling
Something is
has little
wrong.
margins.
Yes, yes,
Sometimes it's
yeah,
just an issue of little margins. The
yes,
margins don't really
yeah,
make sense.
yeah, yeah.
Probably you could be renting in a place like East Legon
And your
and
rent is
paying
high.
thousands of rent, but because you don't look at the margins, well, you would think, "God, I need a breakthrough
Exactly,
to really do
exactly,
this." So
exactly.
if we can really sit down and then merge the faith we have in God with thinking
Yeah,
through the kind of things
yeah,
we need to
yeah.
do, there's
I
so much
think
progress we can make.
faith shouldn't make us delusional. It should
Exactly.
make us wiser.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's basically what it is you're saying. So, um, I want to ask another question around something you said about building from the ground up, and it confronts what we call the NGO mindset,
Yeah.
designing solutions that photograph well for funders rather than actually tackling the needs of our people. If you can shed light on that, because I have someone I know who is in in the NGO space. I'm sure you know her as
Yeah.
well. And these are some of the sentiments she shares. So I'm happy that you've
Oh, really?
coined. It's. I always say this, that when you don't have language for challenges, the challenge feels far. But the day you understand, like what you've
Yeah.
just done, it's called, you've given it a name, so it's easy to spot it and
Yeah.
address it. So please walk us through on that.
I think I need to give a bit of context, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very like hard context. Life was hard when we were growing up. So at some point when I became a bit more self-aware and was thinking about solutions that can like help and raise people from poverty and generally, I found that my thinking was gravitating towards like NGOism. I like to call it the
Okay.
NGOism, where I'll have an NGO, do some projects, and now start looking for funding for people who want to fund those projects. And once I get funded, like I make a lot more impact. I find myself gravitating towards that point of view in many ways. But then I volunteered for an NGO once, and after volunteering, I realized that look, honestly, lots of the things we were doing, which again, you can't fault their match, was really for the donor's interest or to whether the
Yeah.
donor's appetite, right? So you look at the donor videos, you have to go and shoot a very, very poor person.
Deprived.
A fire
Yeah.
person, you have
Yeah.
to show the very deplorable state of how things
Then
are.
it attracts
Yes.
money.
Yes. The first time I got to Tamale, I was really shocked, right? And then I was shocked for good reason, because again, because I've been dabbling in the NGO space and all. Victoria, yeah, I felt Tamale was
Very
an underdeveloped place,
underdeveloped.
and then the
Yeah.
people in Tamale and then the northern part of Ghana need like they work in torn clothes and all.
Yeah.
But I got there, I'm like, wow, Tamale is
It's
really
not what you've
vastly.
been sold. Yeah.
But then the NGOs have been selling that they are, and I'm not saying there are no issues in the north. There are issues in the north, but
It's not a true
it's
picture.
not a true picture
Yeah.
of what's happening there. And then because they need funding, they need to really
Project that.
go to the very, very not so good parts and project that. And I feel that in some way makes us vulnerable to donor funding and donor sentiments. Like if donor comes and says, okay, I know you are talking about water, but my focus is on women's rights.
Yeah.
It means that you need to
You have to
focus,
pivot.
have to
Yeah.
pivot, even if it's water project. The water project should fit into women's
Yeah.
rights when in their concept
Project
and project.
particularly.
And why I was thinking about it, I realized that look, if say a community is facing challenges, right? There are two scenarios. Someone comes and builds them a borehole versus they themselves come together, contribute funds to build their
Their
own
own
borehole.
borehole.
In which instance would you think the borehole will last longer?
It's when the people take
When people
ownership.
take initiative and then build the systems they want,
Yeah.
right? So that chapter 2 was difficult writing, but I felt I needed to address it and then talk about how at some point we need to look at building sustainable solutions that work for our people, for our context, right? Without having to rely on donor sentiment. Because as you can see, when in recent times, how the developed countries in quotes have been withdrawing their
Yeah.
donor support and aid,
Yeah.
then it means that that donor support and then the kind of impact it was having, we cannot constantly rely on it.
Yeah.
See how we had to now scramble for HIV drugs because someone said, I'm not paying for
I'm
it
not
again.
putting in
I'm
money
not
into
putting in
that
money
again.
again. So if from the very beginning of HIV, we had found ways to sustainably build
Yeah.
solutions around HIV, it would have meant
We
that
wouldn't
we
be
wouldn't
in
be
this
under
situation.
the
Yeah, yeah,
situation here
yes, yes, yes,
where
yes.
we would need donor
Yeah.
sentiments.
And I mean, just based on what you've talked about, this donor support, I
Yeah.
want to raise a final argument and then I'll give you time to just say whatever you want to say to
Okay.
our listeners. One of the arguments you make is that we cannot act as 54 separate freelancers. And by that 54, you're referring to each of the countries
Yes.
on the continent because whenever we do, we get exploited or people don't take us seriously. And then you went to describe Trump's July 2025 African Summit and what that meant to you, just listening to what he was saying. So I think I'll let you shed light on that. And then
Hmm.
afterwards, you can just take us home with your message to any leader, any young person listening, any professional, whoever they are, as long as they are African, you are speaking to them after this.
Okay. I think for the Trump thing, that specific issue, it felt deeply humiliating to me. At that point in my career, with where I was working, I needed to do analysis on global events and if they will have an impact in on the business operations. So that was the role I had then. And then so I had to watch the full conversation just to understand if there's anything that
Yeah.
Trump will mention
Yeah.
that will affect us, and then I'll
In
just
any
prompt
way.
my higher ups. While watching it, I could just see how leaders of countries, of people, like people who look like me are like me, and their leaders are just going in and they are kind of doing their best to be in Trump's good book.
Good books.
It's like the headmaster has called the his previous students and he's saying that okay, I want to like give you some mark or something. So how they were responding in submission when in the per international charter they should be equals because they're all equals of
Yeah.
countries.
Sovereign
So they're all
states. Yeah.
sovereign states, so there should be equals having equal conversations.
And
And
that's not what the picture
yeah,
is.
and the part that really got to me was when Trump was asking the Liberian president where he learned English from. I mean, if you read Liberia's history, Trump as the president should know like Liberia's
Yeah.
history and how Liberians can even speak English in the first. But then to ask that, oh wow, you sound so eloquent as a compliment when in reality it
Yeah. Just
wasn't.
like you were also told you're so smart, you shouldn't be here.
Exactly. It's so that's became a really personal moment for me that I need to realize the countries Trump picked were not the countries that you can say, okay, these countries best represent Africa or can
Yeah.
negotiate
Or
for Africa,
typify the African
typify the African
story.
story or can negotiate for the continent. Which means he hand selected and those people now came to represent the African continent. Right. But then look at how the European Union can negotiate for things and can negotiate firmly on stuff, right?
Yeah.
My thinking was, and then this thinking came from. So I've worked as a freelance graphic designer for a while, and as a freelancer, I found that there were some projects that I could get and some I couldn't get. Even if I got some projects, there was like a price ceiling I could
Yeah.
charge. I couldn't really charge a level of
Beyond
amount,
the certain yeah.
but I did some work with an agency once, and I found that this agency could charge sometimes 4 or 5 times, sometimes even 10 times what I was charging,
Yeah.
what I could charge. And then they would now bring the whole work to me to do it.
To do everything.
Which means it's not that I couldn't do the work. It's that I didn't have that capacity or
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
that power
Yeah.
to command
To
higher
earn the
fees, to earn
trust.
the
Yeah.
trust. And then the amount the people were paying, the 10 times amount, they're paying because of trust. And they believe that, okay, I'll get the result I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But because I couldn't guarantee that as an individual, it means that I'll always be on the
Exactly.
short end. I just started thinking, okay, if the continent decides to negotiate as one, right? We are negotiating in a way that benefits us. Then there's no way someone can go to Congo and be doing the kind of thing that's
Yeah.
happening in Congo.
Yeah.
We can all negotiate as one and say, look, we are not coming to bully us or anything. But if you're all negotiating individually, then it means that okay, if for example Ghana Ivory Coast, if Ghana says my cocoa, I'll sell it at say $1,000, you can go and say go and make Ivory Coast sell it at 800. That means that Ghana is
It cuts
a cut
one
Ivory.
party off.
That means that in that case, Ghana and Ivory Coast will need to be fighting on who can
Yeah.
provide
Who
the
can
price
provide?
people will
Yeah.
buy for.
Yeah.
Why the whole contract is saying, look, our cocoa, like how OPEC has done, the oil producing
Yeah.
countries, our cocoa is worth 1,000 cedis a bag. Take it or leave it.
That's
They
it.
can't
And
really.
it's for the
It's
interest
for the
of
interest of the
the
whole all
region.
of us.
Yeah.
They can't really have a say.
Yeah.
So that's what was the thinking behind that specific chapter and
Okay.
why like
Okay.
I felt we
Okay.
needed
Okay. All right.
to
So,
unite.
what's your message to listeners?
Hmm. For more than 400 years, the African continent has been a continent that typifies misery, right? And so if you are looking for anything that sounds miserable or anything that doesn't show how the human race can be spectacular, your best bet will be to find it on the African continent. I believe that really is tiring. I'm tired of living in a continent where the first image or impression that comes of me is poverty. Poverty shouldn't be what defines the African continent and then what makes makes me who I am. I believe the African has so much potential. And I believe there is so much we can do as a people. We just need to appreciate who we are and what we have. Right? If you're able to appreciate who we are and what we have, there is so much we can do. There's the heights we can reach are incredible. And so it's why I wrote this book. I wrote this book to encourage everyone like me that look, the African story isn't done. There is so many pages to the African story, and we need to start writing it now. If we don't start writing it now, our kids will start asking the same questions Kwame Nkrumah asked. Kwame Nkrumah asked those questions 60 years ago. You can't keep asking those questions at this point. At, at some point, we need to start writing the answers to those questions. And I believe if we start now, in 30 years, in fact, someone in Singapore may have been born in poverty. But by the time their children reach the university in about 30 years, they had moved to a fully developed country. I believe that's something that that can be true for us too. We may have been born in extreme poverty or extreme desolation. And by the time our kids reach university, it's possible for our kids to live in different timelines and different climates as compared to what we are living in now. Your parents never grew up with a mobile phone. By the time your parents were growing up, SIM cards were very expensive. And now, even me, I have about 4 SIM cards, right? And so there's so much possibility if we can
Exactly.
put our mind on the fact that look, we can do this. We can first know what we are up against, and then work towards building the kind of Africa we want and need and deserve.
Thank you very much for sharing, Joshua. And I think that one of the statements you made in the book is that we struggle about our past because a lot of things were not written.
Yes.
We passed on things through oral tradition, and so much has been missed. But today we are blessed to have pragmatic optimism, and this is something that has been written, something that chronicles our history as a people, something that helps us to also make sense of who we are, where we've come from, something that argues about our issues without sentiment, just laying the facts before us, but challenging us to have a rethink about how we do things. And there's a statement here in the preface that I want to read. 25 years from now is 2051.
Yeah.
The author himself will be 52 at the time, and he says, all things being equal, I'll come back to this book to see what worked, what didn't, and what can be improved. I'll come back to reflect on the amazing things the ideas in this book may have achieved, or the big failures it may have caused, all based on my pragmatic yet optimistic view of our continent and the world at large. And I think this sums up the spirit of the book. And this is what we are calling you to do as an African. It's time to stop crying over what has been lost.
Yeah.
It's time to take what is left and it's time to make the most of it. Okay, so Joshua, tell us where we
Okay.
can get the book as we wrap up.
The book can be found at pragmaticoptimism.africa. Pragmaticoptimism.africa. So you can find it on the screen or in the link below. Once you go there, you find more information on how to, as and I will personally want to deliver it to you as well. So pragmaticoptimism.africa. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, Joshua. It's been
Thank
a
you for
blast
having
having
me.
a conversation with you, talking about our continent, talking about your journey, talking about your family, and everything that you've been through up until this point. And for Pragmatic Optimism, I'm really thrilled about it, and I'm looking forward to all the amazing things that people will share in the coming weeks and years about this book within the 25 and beyond. And hopefully, you may release more as we go along, as this is just the beginning.